So I have a panel. Let me introduce my panel. We also have on our panel today Catherine McGregor. She is Chief Executive Officer, ENGIE Group. Thank you, Catherine. And Catherine into the conversation because she's an operator, right? And before we ask you about perhaps enhancements and all those other things that we require to make it more reliable, just speak to the subject, please. Indeed, are renewables unstoppable?
Yeah, I think some of the numbers that we are now facing are just proof points in terms of their magnitude. In 2024, I think it was 600 gigawatt that were installed across the globe, 600 gigawatt. In Europe, it was close to 50% of the energy that was produced from renewables in 2024. That's a tripling since 2004. Maybe the few things that remain a bit unknown with renewables is that it is serious stuff now. It's not, for the poets anymore. It's not small projects. It's the magnitude of project that strikes me the most.
Yeah.
The scale-up that we are able to deliver. We're just starting the construction in the Emirates, for example. In terms of solar size, it's 1.5 gigawatts, just pure solar technology. When I look at the batteries, and in India, we're just going to be developing a project that is 100 megawatt, but it's 600 megawatt hours. And sorry, it's a bit technical. What that means is that we are going to be storing the electricity for 6 hours on this 100 megawatts project. And for those of you who've been here, I've been seeing this press release from my group. At the beginning, it was 20 megawatt, 1 hour storage, and that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And now, in 2 years, the technology is moving so fast.
Yeah.
So when I see in the Middle East, round-the-clock project with just solar and battery, it's becoming in reach. The technology advance, the cost competitiveness, the size, the R&D, the technology behind, and the pace is very impressive, which makes me indeed really say, the renewables are not for poets anymore.
Yeah.
It is real.
Yeah.
It plays a key role in, obviously, the energy demand that we see growing in most of the countries. We talk a lot about energy transition in ENGIE, but for a lot of regions now, it's more about energy additions.
Yeah.
And renewables are indeed, the fastest to come to market, and also in terms of scale are really impressive.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want to point out is that renewables have a characteristic today, which is also, I think, ill understood, which is reliability you mentioned, but also certainty of delivery.
Right.
Because the project themselves, and not due respect to the suppliers, they are not that complex compared to other technologies. So, for example, we are finishing the construction of an offshore wind project in France. And France are not super known for being super rapid in developing projects, but from the moment we start the construction to the end, it's 2 years. And it's certain. And it's green power for 800,000 people that live in that department. So those big projects that are really big in magnitude, they are also quite certain in terms of delivery. And if I look at ENGIE, just last year, we installed 5.6 gigawatt. On average, we were below budget on CapEx.
Sure.
So we do not overrun our CapEx budget when we install renewable. And I think I like that. And in terms of delays, we were less than 1 month across all of our portfolios, all regions, all technology, which shows you that if you want to have electrons with certainty at a given time, at an affordable cost, renewables actually are a really, really good bet.
Yeah.
Of course, you need to think systems, because it's not, you're not going to do everything you want with just solar or just wind.
Yeah.
You're going to have to build the systems, hence the need to deploy, the right technologies, the right portfolio, to integrate them and to think of cost of the system. That's very important.
Absolutely.
What we see, and I'll finish here, is that when we look at countries that have deployed a lot of renewables, you see the wholesale market price tend to go down. There is studies that show that. And then the issue is that the customers or the final end users doesn't necessarily see that in their invoice. Why is that?
Why?
Because the invoice is made of several aspects. You have the electrons, the price of the electrons that is being produced, but then you have taxes,
Yes.
and then you have, of course, grid.
Sure.
And grid is obviously a big topic. It needs to be deployed, it needs to be developed, and that adds additional cost,
Yeah.
which sometimes blurs the picture. So people say, oh, well, my invoice increases
Yeah.
because of renewables. But it's not because of renewables, it's because grids need to be reinforced, be built to
Yeah.
support the electrification.
Yeah.
And that's very important that we explain that so we don't just blame renewables for higher costs in certain
Absolutely.
circumstances.
You can look at the minister for the taxes and stuff, but and also you didn't mention it, but you're allowed to mention renewables.
Yeah, no, the key theme is indeed predictability, stability, clear framework, ambitions being set, sometimes even reached ahead of time.
Yeah.
All of these are very, very important because, you know, as a utility, you know, the returns that we make on each project is not huge. So you know, the risk-reward balance need to be right. And so in emerging countries, what we're finding is that often it is indeed the framework, the fiscality, the fiscal stability,
Yeah.
the regulation that is not mature, and that makes it difficult for a developer like ENGIE to
Yeah.
invest in quite a few of those countries. In contrary, when we have a government that really sets the goal and listens to all the actors, the players, and start to work together, overcoming some of the hurdles, then we are able to progress. And you
Yeah.
know, India is a good example.
Yeah, and I see you're looking at the minister.
yeah, no,
Let's give you an
because-
opportunity, right?
Because India is a place where we had actually stopped investing because we were really struggling, and now we've started again
Okay.
with, you know, benefiting from indeed the improved framework. You know, land acquisition, for example, is less risky. It makes it it's a bit easier for the developers, and so the
Yeah.
conditions are improving. Therefore, indeed, you know, we are progressing. We're very proud of what we do in India,
Yeah.
also on the technology side.
Thank you very much. My question is related to the wind turbine. I mean, in a very big discussion here in Davos, there was some kind of against wind for the wind power generation. So how that kind of change in the very big country in the world against the wind turbine, wind power? How do you see the effect of such kind of change of a very big country related to the renewable, especially the wind? Maybe ENGIE or Aqua may have some kind of comment.
Okay. Okay. Who wants to
Yeah,
take it?
I mean, you know, the way we manage our project, we have quite a large pipeline, which is split by geography and by technology, and we constantly adjust our capital allocation decisions based on where we see we can do the best project. The best projects are, you know, the ones that are the most certain in terms of delivery. I mentioned execution is very important, and so whenever we think permitting is going to be complicated for whatever reason, then obviously we'll do a little bit less wind technology in that region, and then we will reallocate capital correspondingly to other areas where, for example, wind is a bit more welcome. Now, talking about wind, you know, I guess you mentioned the comments on wind earlier. We see that also in Western Europe quite a bit. In my country, in France, you know, there are some people who passionately hate wind. And so, in fact, we had to, as ENGIE Group, we had to do some communication to fight fake news against wind, because for some reason it had become so political, and there was some really crazy stuff, including that wind turbines were slowing down the rotation of Earth. I mean, this is, you know, how far, no, but this is how far, you know, fake news can go.
Yeah.
And this is where, you know, we are taking, you know, we are entering the debate and said, look, we have to be rational about that. So I understand that some people think it's ugly. I personally like it. And, you know, we can debate, but we should remain rational about it. And I think that's quite important. The point is that, you know, as a group, we do have optionality in the way we allocate capital, which, you know, is a little bit of a lesson, I think, for all companies today, is that you need to hedge your bet a little bit. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, and having a bit of diversified geographical footprint and technology also exposure is proving indeed quite handy. And then maybe the last point I'll add on wind is that I'm personally convinced that, because we did a poll in France, and what we saw is that people who have wind farms next to their place actually like wind farms better than the ones who don't.
Oh.
Which, when you think about it, it's a bit counterintuitive. And my interpretation of that is that I think that when people have windmills next to them, most of the people, they see sovereignty and self-dependency, i.e., you see that this thing is turning, it produces electrons, but it doesn't need any fuel. Whatever, forget about fossil or not, it doesn't need any fuel. So here, you have the very vivid representation of what sustainability means. So you are producing power without the need of anyone. And yes, of course, your turbine comes from somewhere, and maybe you do have, Chinese content or whatever. But once it's installed, you don't need anyone to produce. And I do think that people, and it's true also on solar, by the way, and this is one of the big benefits of renewables that we didn't talk about. Once it's installed, you don't need any feedstock, and that really creates more, better sovereignty and security of supply. In today's world, that's important.
Yeah, 100%.
Adding to the